I'm really grateful to Tamra and the conference organizers. If I don't deliver any other message, I want to say that at least. I was a fill-in. They had a cancellation just a day or so ago. And they offered me the opportunity to use these 10 minutes, which I'm grateful for. That's why you don't see me on the program. That's why I don't have any slides. That's why I will not be as polished as these other speakers. That last part is a lie. I was not going to be as polished as all these other speakers no matter what, but I would have written slides. But anyway, you'll just have to listen and I'll just have to talk. So it was a weird choice that Tamara and the organizers made to give me this chance, because I did do all that stuff. I did work on healthcare.gov. I did start the U.S. digital service, hired its first 200 people, ran that organization for its first 2.5 years. All that was quite a while ago. That was 10 years ago. Oh, there's Tamara right there. And good. So it's been a minute, and now I'm in front of you all. It's quite a lot of you. 10 years later, I'm 7,000 kilometers from home. I looked that up in kilometers because we're in Europe. I don't work for any government. I don't have any staff here who gave me these talking points and are going to scold me after the fact for not using them. So the picture I'm trying to draw for you is that I don't have any reason to lie to you or tell you anything that isn't true. So, that being the case, I'm going to break with the traditional program for a little bit and try to use my 8 minutes and 30 seconds that are left to tell you something that I think can really help you in the jobs that you are doing. So it's going to take a minute to build up to it, though. So you've heard about a couple of the projects I did that were a success. While I was in the government, we did about 20 more. Then, since then, after leaving the government, I have this consulting company, which is just me and 3 of the others that came on that trip with me, and it's called Layer Aleph, and we work for private and public sector customers, and we do the same type of intensive intervention to make change that we did sometimes in the government. We've had about 25 projects there too, so it's kind of hard to know what to count, but I've done things like healthcare.gov about 50 times, and I have not been on 50 magazine covers. I have been on a couple, but what should be obvious is that not all of the things we did were successful. I'm not going to talk about the failures a lot exactly, because I'm not crazy, and that's not super fun. But I hope you believe me when I say that I can tell the difference between a project that has a chance of going anywhere and has a chance of making any kind of success and one that does not. And the thing I wanted to share with you about that is that the secret to making a change in a big, entrenched organization that doesn't want to change is very simple. It's that most of the time, you can't. It is not possible. Big organizations are just like people in at least this one way, which is that the desire to change has to be intrinsic. It has to come from inside. You cannot cause an organization or a person to make a significant change to their habits or their behavior or their culture because you want it to change. Any therapist would agree with this. Most of the time, you just can't. And it has very little to do with how hard you try. It has very little to do with what skills you've got or a degree or anything like that. So think for a second how that feels. It's different depending on where you are in this journey, and I've seen probably all parts of the life cycle at this point. You might be frustrated, you might be angry, you might be getting ready to argue with me in the question and answer section if we have time for that, so I'll try to make sure we do not, which will be easy. That's fine. You might feel despair. You might feel relief. Because if the factors that make a project successful or not, and the factors that make an organization change or not, are not something that you can control, then it's not your fault if it doesn't change. What a load off your shoulders, right? Whatever it is that you feel about my claim, which is that most of the time you can't do it, put a label on it and then set it aside for a minute and talk about it to your therapist later, because we're going to go on for the talk and say a couple of other things. And the rest of the talk is hidden in that part where I said that most of the time it's not possible. There are little windows, there are tiny bits of opportunity that happen in either an individual or an organization's life, during which the rules are suspended, the resistance is less, and it is possible to move things in a significant and durable way. There are a lot of words for what you could call these windows of opportunity in a lot of languages. This is the English session, which is fortuitous for me because English is the only language that I speak. And the word that we have in English is crisis. So that's what we have studied since I've been outside of the government in the form of Layer Aleph. That's what we've been studying, is what we now are calling crisis engineering, for the sake of having to call it something, since it seems to be different from what other people are doing. And that's really the fundamental theorem that I just told you, is that most of the time you cannot make change in a directed way on any time scale that you care about, but in tiny bits of time you can. So why I think this might help you is because I will tell you everything we have learned about how to spot such an opportunity. I'll have to use my notes a little bit. I got pretty far without looking at my notes, though, for having written this just now. Here's what a crisis looks like. And you need to be able to identify it from the outside if you're going to find this opportunity and go there. So like if you were living it, you probably already know. But if you're looking for one from the outside, look for a few telltales. The organization needs to be facing an existential threat. Existential means that the agency, the department, whatever, will not continue to exist if it doesn't adapt, if it doesn't transform. That can be not 100% true, but if the people who run the organization and the people who work in the organization believe that it is true, that's what you're looking for. There's usually an element of surprise to it. This comes from research. We found that it agrees with our experience, but research says that usually to push an organization or a person into crisis, there was an element of surprise. Something that we didn't expect to happen or we didn't expect so soon has happened. There's an element of time pressure. There's not the time to run the regular decision-making process. This one will always give itself away in the first paragraph or two of talking to an agency or a possible customer or whatever. If a calendar date makes it into the first few sentences out of their mouths, then there is a time pressure. There is a deadline that matters to them. Sorry. There's a little bit, we don't have time to really go into this, but there is an element of fundamental surprise if those words mean anything to you, and there's usually a breakdown in sense-making, which is what we spend most of my college class talking about. So if you take my college class, I will tell you all about sense-making until you're very bored of it. We don't have time for it right now, but it is a very important process that is how you are oriented to your environment around you and know what your role in it is. During these crisis moments, all of that falls apart. It's probably the very definition of the crisis, is that you have lost a sense of meaning in the framework that you're working in and your place in it. When these things have happened, the conditions are now ready for something to happen. Here's what the consequences will be. The incentives in the organization will have changed. The power structure will be disrupted. Priorities are different. They're usually not known or they're not clear. In any big organization, they're not clear to begin with, but they're especially unclear during a crisis. And the communications patterns, this one's very important, inside the organization are all disrupted. Because there's new meetings, there's new people in town, there's new building, there's whatever, but the communications are all disrupted. That is to say, all of the things which inhibit change normally are suspended. This is your chance. That's what you're looking for. How that could be useful in the kinds of jobs that most of you have, as best as I can tell from the few that I have met and talked to, is it helps you to be flexible. Look for flexible appointments. Find a position where you can see a lot of the terrain instead of just a little bit of it. all of these things, well, have transferable skills. Sorry, we're almost out of time. Those are the things to optimize for. If you have done that with your career, if you are not leading with a agenda of your own, if you're not bringing the solution that you believe is going to be the thing to the table and the agency where you want to implement it, if that is not your goal, if your goal is to help make a difference, have success along the way, then those are the things to optimize for. If you are doing those things I just said, if you are going to a place with an agenda of your own and focusing on a narrow goal, you will probably not get there, and it will hurt the whole time. If you do a little bit more looking around and sailing with the weather instead of against it, you might get where you're going anyway, and you'll have some successes along the way which will keep you going for longer. Most of the people that I've met in jobs like yours and like the people that used to work for me and that I used to have, most of those people would benefit from spending half as much energy trying to move some particular mountain of sand and twice as much energy looking for the mountains that are ready to move that are also worth moving. I had a couple other things to say, but I've run out of time, so that was the message I wanted to share with you. I hope it is helpful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, yeah.
Yes, you can stay. And by the way, you're just as polished as any other speaker. You are in Berlin here, so we are cool, right? Okay, anyway, so one question, one short answer for Mikey. Anyone? Who is laughing? How to provoke a crisis, right? That's what we want. How to provoke a crisis?
Well, again, I don't work for a government. I got no reason to lie to you. So look at what agencies respond to. In my country, and I'll bet in yours, they respond to public pressure, they respond to press, and they respond to appropriators who control their budget. Those are the things they respond to. The end. That's the list. So if any of those people get very upset with the agency, a crisis is coming. How to get those people upset with the situation that you're upset about, I will leave as an exercise to the reader, but that's where you go to do it.
Thank you. This is great. Thank you, Mikey.